All right, now amid total breakdown of ties between India and Canada, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has made some serious allegations against the Indian government. Citing the Washington Post, he's accused India of supporting criminal activities. He said that Canada has provided all the evidence, but India has rejected the claims. Trudeau also mentioned that Indian agents were involved in the killing of Nijjar. He said that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police has clear and compelling evidence, quote unquote, that agents of the Indian government are involved in activities threatening public safety, including clandestine operations and coercion, targeting South Asian Canadians. Trudeau has revealed that Canada and the officials from Canada here had made multiple attempts to collaborate with Indian authorities, but these efforts were rejected. Now, not just that, Canada has alleged a Lawrence Bishnoi link in all of this, claiming that India's R&AW agency used the Bishnoi gang to extend their presence in Canada.
Canada is a country rooted in the rule of law, and the protection of our citizens is paramount. That's why, when our law enforcement and intelligence officials began pursuing credible allegations that agents of the Government of India were directly involved in the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, on Canadian soil, we responded. While attempts have been made by the RCMP and national security officials to work with the Government of India and Indian law enforcement counterparts on this matter, they have been repeatedly refused. This is why, this weekend, Canadian officials took an extraordinary step. They met with Indian officials to share RCMP evidence which concluded 6 agents of the Government of India are persons of interest in criminal activities. And despite repeated requests to the Government of India, it has decided not to cooperate.
It is targeting the South Asian community, but what we've seen is there's specific targeting of pro-Khalistan elements in Canada, or members of the pro-Khalistan movement. Just in order to preserve the integrity of the investigations that are being conducted by our police of jurisdiction partners, I won't be providing any further details in regards to the specificity of those investigations. But what we've seen is from an RCMP perspective, is the use of organized crime elements. And I will say and it's been publicly attributed and claimed by one organized crime group in particular, which is the Bishnoi group. So that's what we're seeing here in Canada. And we believe that that group is connected to agents of the Government of India.
Geeta Mohana, Foreign Affairs Editor, getting in more details in that big story. Geeta, in fact, interestingly, is in Islamabad to cover the SCO meeting. But Geeta, this question to you is going to be regarding the huge, this nosediving of diplomatic relations between Canada and India. Milan Sharma also getting in more details on that big story. Geeta, first of all, the interesting link here is the one that has been drawn by Canada on the so-called Lawrence Bishnoi link, that they allege that Indian government authorities are using the gangster and his connections in Canada and elsewhere to target certain sections of their society. What do you have to say about this allegation, and how is the Indian government looking into this particular charge?
For one, they have absolutely rejected any of the allegations that are being made by the Canadian side, saying that there is no evidence. The so-called quote-unquote irrefutable evidence that Canada says it has provided to India. India continues to maintain that there is no evidence that has been provided, but things have escalated to a point of no return, Sneha. Look, one is that they are not just naming people, they're also now naming officials. They're talking about the top leadership of the country, and they're making public statements of it. But they also have done one more thing, Sneha. They actually are calling up and speaking to every Five Eye member. Now, remember, the Five Eye countries are 5 countries who on a real-time basis share intelligence with each other, closely are integrated when it comes to intelligence gathering, dissemination, sharing, and cooperation. And they are US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. So these are the countries, and Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, already has started or has made calls to all these Five Eye countries. The latest being the New Zealand as a country, and the New Zealand Foreign Minister, Minister Winston Peters, has come out and put out a statement saying that yes, Canada indeed has spoken to them about criminal investigations that are underway, spoken of violence and threats. Did not mention India because every other country has been very careful in mentioning India, barring Canada. So what the statement says is that violence against members of its South Asian community and the alleged criminal conduct outlined publicly by Canadian law enforcement authorities, if proven, would be very concerning. So yes, Five Eyes countries are also now expressing concern. But in terms of Lawrence Bishnoi and the connection of Lawrence Bishnoi, while they have made that connection, while they're saying that these are the people, the contacts and the calls that were made, there is no proof that has been provided, according to Indian agencies, no proof that has been provided to India that can stand in the court of law.
All right. You know, Geeta, I'll just come back to you in a moment from now. Geeta Mohan tracking those details for us. But there are several questions that remain as to why Justin Trudeau is now making these allegations. So why is Canada making these allegations? Why is this destruction needed at the end of the day? I mean, if this isn't a distraction, then really what is, given the nature of these charges? Now, there are problems within Canada as well. And here are the problems. There's a major housing crisis on the rise in Canada, and perhaps a distraction of this kind is going to divert attention from this particular problem that Canada is facing. Apart from that, Trudeau could be requiring this because there is massive public anger over inflation, which continues to be a concern. The third reason here has probably got to do with the fact that Trudeau's party had lost the elections in Montreal and also Toronto. These are bypolls that were held, and because of the defeat, they could be looking to garner further support and empathy perhaps from their people, and that could be a reason. 20 of Trudeau's MPs are seeking his resignation, upset with Trudeau, and hence want him to step down, and there is pressure in a sense that is building. Conservatives have had a big lead in opinion polls, which is clearly not good news for Trudeau, and that's the reason why this desperation. Perhaps Trudeau predicted to lose elections if it is held today. So that is a big concern for Justin Trudeau. How can he then get his people to rally behind him by making India enemy country number one and by spitting venom against us? Perhaps is this going to be his tragedy? Also, pro-Khalistan NDP withdrew support to Trudeau, and hence pressure is building on that front as well, is what it appears. Milind Sharma also continues to be with us on that big story. Milind, several reasons. Domestic pressure back home in Canada, and that's the reason why this could be his compulsion, isn't it, is what is now being said. Or else, why make these charges? Also, India has repeatedly said that Canada has, been making these charges, but when it comes to giving proof, they give us none.
Well, Sneha, all these points that you have just mentioned is exactly why we are looking at this knee-jerk reaction from the Canadian government side at the moment. In fact, the Canadian police did say that over 12 credible threats to lives of pro-Khalistan movement have been discovered. India has been very clear. They have said earlier also that it is because of the political, advantage that Trudeau could get in Canada, and of course with the elections approaching, that Canada has been doing this. And of course, India has made its stance very clear, because on the case of security concerns related to pro-Khalistani groups in Canada, India will not budge. We have already given out statements saying that Canada is not serious about addressing India's concerns. So on one hand, all these points that you just mentioned are going against Trudeau at the moment, and which is why, to gain that kind of political mileage in his own country, these things are being used. And as the Ministry of External Affairs statement said, India's image is being besmirched in the world just for political gains, which is not going down well with India, and which is why, certain steps have been taken in accordance with law and order in our country. And India has made it very clear that there has to be evidence, there has to be proof linkage to all the allegations that are being made by the Canadian authorities at this moment. And even the statements that are made by Trudeau, India has categorically rejected all those claims that are being made, Sneha.
All right, I'm going to thank you for the moment. Milind Sharma getting us up to speed with those details. Geeta Mohan also getting her perspective on that big story that we are tracking.